Do you know the kid's name that transferred out that made the statement? Because this kid played.
Xavier Smith was one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, Xavier Smith was the DB.
Okay, so this kid transferred out of Colorado, ended up going to Austin Peay, which is a smaller D1 school. I think it's at the FCS level. Ends up balling out there, becomes an All-American, and he actually ends up transferring to UTEP to play now at the FBS level again at UTEP. Even though it's not Power 4, it's still FBS level, right? And there's been statements coming out saying that the culture and things like that aren't, aligned at Colorado. And from an outside perspective, someone like me or Shoney, is very easy to believe that that is the case. It's true when you got kids like Dylan Edwards transferring out of the program, a kid that was not only coached by Dion in his youth, but highly regarded not only as a national prospect, but even as a first-year kid. I mean,
started.
I mean, he had 4 touchdowns against TCU in the opening game.
Debut.
Electric. But obviously, you kind of saw as the year progressed and as Colorado's team, with them winning and stuff, regressed, you saw that his usability on the field was less and less. So Dylan Edwards came out with a statement as well saying that he wanted to transfer to where he could go to a program that would not only compete at a high level, but get him prepared for potentially the NFL and use him more as an all-purpose back. And he's from the state of Kansas, so him going to Kansas State was a great fit. Avery Johnson, he also played with growing up, so there's a little chemistry there and things like that. But we're going into more in depth about like what's really going on at Colorado. We've been seeing some tweets coming out, not only with Deion Sanders, but with Coach Prime himself.
Yeah, and that's first and foremost, like, this is why people don't like them. Like, and I defended Dion from the beginning. Cam was the same way, saw the potential that was through the roof with what Dion could do. But first and foremost, that a lot of that existed recruiting-wise and what we were projecting he would be in the living room of homes and doing that. And he hasn't even attempted to do that. He's shown very clearly that he'll just overhaul his roster through the portal each year. But the problem is you don't establish anything. Like, there hasn't been a time this offseason where they've acted like they only won 4 games last year. Anytime you see a video of any of his kids, like Shadur, has projections to be the number 1 pick in the draft. That's way too early and does not matter at all. Like, you still got to go have an All-American type season. You got to compete for your conference title. You got to show the leadership that is a big reason why those projections were there to begin with. Like, Shadur being cerebral and the things I talked about earlier about like Arch and the quarterbacks that I was bragging about, that was what it was with him. He processes things really fast. He grew up with an NFL father, all this stuff. He's led his teams from his freshman year all the way through. He started every single year. He's what I said earlier about guys getting better dramatically every year. He has shown that, and so he deserves his credit for that. But there's nothing set in stone. He doesn't have any like Caleb Williams generational gifts. He doesn't have a Deion Sanders generational speed. He doesn't have any of that. And then Shiloh should just take a seat and stay away from he needs to put his tongue away for a minute, dude. Shiloh Sanders is going into like his 6th or 7th year. It's getting close time to where he's going to have to go get a real job if he doesn't get better. He's sitting there talking about PFF grades, dude. Nobody gives a shit about what somebody in their dorm in Athens, Georgia said Shiloh graded out wise, coverage wise, or whatever he was talking about on that clip. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Practice. He searches for a camera and it's like, oh, people that say I can't tackle, go check PFF. I only missed 12 tackles. You only missed 12 too many. That's where your mindset should be.
It's a lot of tackles missed.
You can't miss 12 tackles.
That's 1 a game.
Yes. And you guys won 4 games. You're talking shit to Oregon before the game that I quote, I'll fuck all of y'all up and your coaches. And then I think he didn't finish the game. I think he went out of the game early. He got dogged, though, every time I watched. And so they don't act like it. There was a clip of Quavo, like, calling them out. Quavo was calling them out and saying that they need to be better, right?
Yeah.
And, not that really matters, but clearly, like, if it's getting to that point where Quavo's saying something to you and he's acknowledging that you need some humility, it's time for some humility. And then when you look at Dion tweeting the kid essentially, and paraphrasing it, was like, you were never there for me. You never tried to help me get better. And it almost seemed like you were distant, like I couldn't do anything. Story comes out that like they had told the kid to portal. He didn't. And so that's how Dion treated him. Well, that's incredibly hypocritical to everything Dion claims to be. And this is why even before coaching, anything you heard that was ever negative about Dion, it was shit like this. The standoffishness, too good for other people persona that he puts off, and he's doing it coming off of a 4-win season. They're unproven. They're not in an easy conference. You know what I mean? I had high expectations for Colorado, but now they're a roster like guys like Dylan Edwards transferring. That immediately eliminates that.
Yeah.
Those are guys that I would have depended on to predict Colorado to win anything this year. You know what I mean? And with like Travis Hunter, anybody in the world could take that kid and do something with him. Imagine him with Sark or at Oklahoma or at Ohio State.
That kid is so good.
If he would have stayed at Florida State, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he would be going crazy on both sides of the ball,
Yeah.
just like he is now.
Yeah.
And so I think, you should stop worrying about painting an image that this kid was trash and y'all don't care about him. Shador's quote, and I'm saying it like, he said, "I don't even know who he was." Like, fucking shut the fuck up. Like you won 4 games. These odds on DraftKings or whatever in May do not matter. You got to play games and you got a target on your back. And Dion is painting a target on backs that might not be prepared to defend it. Mm-hmm. Shiloh paints a target on his back and he's not always ready to defend it. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're becoming like the reason why people didn't like Angel Reese. Like, stop. There's nobody that's against you at Colorado. They're against some things that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And if the overwhelming majority of society feels that way, which I think it's safe to say at this point, then look at yourself and you got to have some humility at some point, because this could be one of the biggest crash and burns we watch in sports if he repeats what he did last year.
100%. I can't agree more, especially with the schedule, right? Like, we're going to pull up their schedule, and I'm sure it's already a gauntlet. You have not only, because the Big 12, if you guys are fans of football, the Big 12, even with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, that's going to be the most entertaining conference outside of the SEC and Big 10, because you're going to have literally true parity in there. You're going to have, on paper, 10 teams that could probably outright win that conference, right? So when you add in these teams, right, you got Colorado's schedule, and I'm looking at it now, right? They got North Dakota State first game. They got Nebraska. Nebraska is a much improved Nebraska team. Good defense under Matt Rule. Dylan Raiola looks like he is going to be the real deal. Very Mahomes-esque quarterback, so seems like they have the quarterback going on there. You got Colorado State rival game. We saw how close it was last year. I don't think they would lose this game on talent. I think Colorado got better, but they could lose, right? Then you got Baylor. Baylor is going to be much improved. They're going to be better than they were last year. They were one of the youngest teams in all of college football last year. I think all their starters returned, all 22. So, very young there. They're going to be good. And then you also got Central Florida. They're going crazy in the portal. That feels like they get a guy every day that, could add value to the team. K-State is K-State. Blue-collar team, very good football team. That's going to be a good game for not only storylines, because you're going to have Dylan Edwards going back up to Boulder playing for K-State as well. Then you got Arizona, team that's got a lot of talent there. You got Cincinnati, should win that game. Cincinnati's not that great. Tech is going to be one of the better teams in the Big 12 for years to come. They're probably going to recruit the best in that conference. They have the resources. They also have the background and being in Texas to be able to provide that elite level talent, especially when you have, what is his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Micah Hudson?
No, the coach.
Oh, Joey McGuire.
Yeah, Joey McGuire. When you have a coach that's that connected with the high schools in the state of Texas, he's going to always be able to recruit at that kind of a level. Yeah. Utah, they have Cam Rising playing on his 20th season, right? They got a very old QB, but a very polished team.
Been in multiple conference championships.
Exactly. You got Kansas on the upright. They got Jalen Daniels, always get Jalen Daniels.
Yeah.
They got Jalen Daniels,
superstar.
Lance Leipold, very good football team. You got Oklahoma State, it's Gundy. They're always going to be.
Yeah, they're going to look like they're going to be projected to win 3 games, and they're going to win 10.
Exactly. Always projected to be a tough out. So as we went through the schedule,
great coaches. Going through that schedule, it's like find 5 wins. It's not even easy to do that.
Yeah.
You got better coaching staffs. You got players, teams with continuity. You brought up Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. Houston's going to get better. They're always, they could be really bad, but they're always a good coach away from being a problem. Yeah. And then you got all these teams that TCU should be really good. and they're hungry to take over the conference.
Yeah.
Like
There's all
TCU
these-
and Texas Tech want to, and Baylor throw them in there, want to be the kings of the Big 12
Yeah.
and consistently in the top 5 going into the playoffs, winning the conference every single year. And
especially a team like Oklahoma State. I mean, they literally they've been blocked by Oklahoma and Texas
Forever. All these teams
all
have.
these K-State, all
like
these
as
teams.
mad as like the conference was about us leaving and what that causes, I think you've turned the page on that to like, okay, well now we can really establish ourselves the way they did because we don't have them. You don't have big brothers looming over you, and there's no obviously fans don't want to admit that, but that's what the reality of what that is. And then he was on. I don't know if it was the Shop. It was like LeBron's show, one of them, and he was talking about Bronny Dion. And we can play the clip, but he was talking about Bronny and basically saying that he felt bad for him because like the pressure and that how he tells his kids, you can't. He said that he was watching them and could feel the pressure as he played this year. Yeah. And he was like, I tell my kids like, you ain't ever gonna be me. God set me aside. I'm special. I'm this. I'm that. You do not act like that.
No.
You do not. You quoted a tweet and was like, Shador's going top 5. LOL. What are you gonna do? You don't know shit about if he's going top 5. Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, one, you got the guys like Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck. Let's see how Jalen Milroe improves as a passer under Kellen DeBoer that are all naturally more gifted than your son is. That's why they were ranked higher than your son out of high school. That's why I think if it wasn't for the name, honestly, you wouldn't see your son as a projected first-round pick because the reality is if anybody else did what they did at Colorado, now obviously he played very well and very efficiently, they're not looking at them as they're not the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 pick. I guarantee that. And so there's nothing set in stone in May of 2024 of what's going to happen in April 2025. Nothing is set in stone. It's not even set in stone that he'll stay healthy. And obviously you don't want to wish that, but I'm just saying that that is crazy talk. You're painting a target on your back when there already was one. And then, like, what's the future look like? Who's signing up for that as an NFL GM right now? You're saying that he can only go play for certain teams, and not the only one to do that. That's all good and gravy, unless those teams don't want him or need him.
Yeah.
Like he mentioned, Cowboys, Ravens, Falcons. Those 3 aren't taking him, most likely. The Cowboys could potentially.
They could potentially take
with
him.
the Dak thing looming, and yet there is no guarantee that that's who they go for.
They're going to have to trade up. Y'all aren't going to be bad enough to draft him.
And if they're trading up, is it Shador that they want, or is it one of those other guys? There's somebody, a Jaden Daniels that happens every single year.
Yeah.
Someone could just go win the Heisman and put up archaic numbers and just make a dramatic improvement.
Yeah.
So where it look like you got great weapons leaving, your roster still looks shallow. You got guys starting that other programs couldn't wait to get rid of that because they were cancers.
Yeah.
You're acting like a cancer. It's just starting to look bleak to where, man, this is going to be humiliating. Doesn't even justify what it's going to be if Colorado's not competing for the conference. Because these teams, some of these teams that you mentioned, if they do make the leaps that we think they could leap, that could be ugly, bro. Yeah. That could be ugly.
Yeah.
And like, there's people like Matt Rule. Wasn't there a little shit there last year with them and Colorado, kind of Dion taking shots at him? I think like you're playing a lot of teams that like
they want to let you know like we're here and this is whatever happened in Nebraska, Colorado, for example. That game's a rivalry.
Yeah,
that is a old school rivalry. States are literally right next to each other. You're gonna have Matt Rule, who is gonna have a much improved team in the Duke.
And he'll build an
coach.
He'll build an NFL type roster. I'm talking like with the size and just like he did at Baylor. Yeah. And then you want to talk about a good quarterback. Dylan Raiola could come out and be better than Shador as a freshman. Yeah. You know what I mean? And this isn't like the bash Shador. This is they're objectively annoying at this point. Yeah. And for a team that's won 4 games, there's been way too many headlines. Yeah. I understand it's a polarizing family and a polarizing story that would generate news and attention no matter what. But then you're going out of your way to fight with a young kid. You know what I mean? He's being honest and genuine about the situation that like everybody, including us, idolized Prime as a player and as a guy and personality and all that growing up. I get it that there's going to be situations where you got to come down hard as a coach and you're trying to build a program, but now you're in your second year and it's just rinse and repeat what you did last year. it would be crazy for any of us to just come and objectively say that we think that that's going to win. They're going to win 10 games doing the exact same thing they did last year. And to be honest, might be in a harder conference. I understand Oregon and Washington were really, really good, but just top to bottom, like each week, you're not getting a break.
No, you're not getting a break. And all these teams, like you're saying, they're all going to feel like they're going to have the opportunity to not only dominate the conference, but literally play for that 12 or that playoff spot that's going to be available on the table, right? There could be only one team that comes out of the Big 12 because of the parity and the amount of losses and casualties that all these teams will take playing each other. Because for the most part, if you look through 1 through 10, obviously I think there's 16 teams in the Big 12, but if you look through, there's 10 teams in the Big 12 where it's like, I look at them, TCU, Iowa State, Colorado, all these teams, right? UCF. You're going to look at these teams, you're going to be like, okay, there's maybe like the upper echelon, you would probably pick K-State, maybe Arizona, Utah, and then like Tech, maybe Oklahoma State. You'd probably put those like at that upper echelon, and then everyone else is like literally right behind them. But you have 10 teams that logistically can go win this. West Virginia, last year they won 8 games, right? That's another team that's going to be
and always a sneaky team.
Iowa State,
and then West Virginia's got an electric quarterback.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, and you're going to run into these games where you're always a showcase game now. Yeah. So Colorado is always going to be center of the attention, even when they're losing. People are going to be watching to root for you to lose more. Yeah. But they also knows that these coaches and these players that you're playing against will all be up for it, knowing that they're going to be showcased in this game. It's going to be nationally televised. It's going to have eyes on it. Everything's going to get clipped on the socials and get millions and millions of views. So everybody's looking to go crazy on Colorado.
Yeah.
You know, you got I don't know if they're doing season 2 of the Prime Show, but like, you got so much attention on you. You won 4 games and you got the ego like a guy that's won multiple national championships. You're not Bobby Bowden. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
and this is not a good look because a lot of people think that, once Shiloh, Shedeur, and Travis go to the NFL, he's going to leave the Colorado job. And the writing is definitely on the wall. Obviously, he can use the portal like most people can, but you want your roster to be kind of built like how Texas, Oklahoma, these elite level programs are building their roster. 80% through recruiting, and then you fill in the little holes through the portal. Maybe you get your Isaiah Bond here. Maybe you get your Dion Burks here. You get these players that fill a void, but also make your team that much better and that much more competitive. And you go get those guys, and they got to be also culture fits. When you're bringing in 60% of your roster every year from the portal, and then maybe the other 40-30% are high school guys, there's really no culture being built because most portal guys are a rental. They're either a 1-year or 2-year rental, and they're there to be productive and get an extra boost to their draft grade usually. So like we were saying, like you don't want to continue to build this kind of dilemma, and then when you have your starting quarterback, and not only the starting quarterback, you have the head coach now antagonizing his former players and basically talking down on his former players and just people online. It's like, all right, what are we doing here, right? Like the focus needs to be on football. It needs to be on preparing your team to potentially go into a new conference and compete for that Big 12 title, potentially compete for that playoff spot. But you got to do it with a certain way and dignity, because at the end of the day, you don't want your team bringing, yes, headlines, all that stuff might be good for business and stuff like that, but you want it to be more so developmental and good for the program. And I'm not saying Prime's not doing that. We know he's a capable coach. We know he can build the roster. We know he has the resources. Now it's just more so of like knowing when to control your antics. It's same thing with like your sons, knowing when to tell them, like they don't need to be on Instagram saying DM me to come to the portal.
That's crazy. Like that's crazy. DM me if you're on offense and DM my brother if you're on defense. That's like, fucking crazy. Like, who's doing? And let me see him. Screenshot him. Who's DM? Yeah. Who's gonna DM and be like, oh, Shedeur, can I come play with you? That's over. Yeah. Y'all have lost the luster on that. And it's dirty, like it's looking dirty to the University of Colorado because you seem so centric and focused on your sons and Travis Hunter and getting them drafted as high as they can get drafted in the first round. Then you're going to bounce and you're going to go with them and try to do something in the NFL, which is not going to happen, and not at this rate.
No.
But I imagine we'll just follow and be around for his son's career and Travis's career.
And like we were saying, like it's Deion Sanders. If he just like puts in effort to recruit, he can get top 10 classes every year because of who he is.
I thought he could have immediately made a huge impact in Dallas.
Yeah.
He's been coaching the youth in Dallas for over a decade. They grew up in Dallas. He's been around. He's a legendary Dallas Cowboy, everything about it. Going to church in Dallas all these years. Like, he would have been great in everybody's living room, and that's what was the expectation, not only from us fans, but like from Colorado when they hired him, bro. And it's just turned into an absolute clown show. And it's, it's not even like bashing them. It's just looking like a potential major embarrassment that's like just cringy to watch at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully they can figure it out, and continue, because like we said, they are when Shedeur is playing good ball, and if they can protect him, very entertaining to watch. Obviously, Travis Hunter is electric, a stud, and it's Colorado, right? Like their games were just entertaining because of who's there, the optics, and things like that. But as Shoney has mentioned, they have to be better with what they're doing, how they're handling and building the program, because longevity doesn't seem like that's really the goal. It seems to just be a rental. We're going to be here for a couple years. I'm going to get my kids drafted, and then whatever happens to Colorado happens. Like, there's no preparing for success. There's no building recruiting classes, stacking recruiting classes. Even if like the next coach were to come in, if you can stack that talent, obviously like how Alabama did, DeBoer, being a great coach that he is, was able to retain most of that roster, and he has a talented roster built from Nick Saban because of who he is as a coach. You're going to lose people through regression and things like that, but if you're not even recruiting at all and you're just doing things with the portal is not sustainable, clearly. You're going to have teams like Ole Miss, Missouri, go all in for 1 year, spend a ton of money, try to win, and then
they depend on the portal.
They're going to...
Yeah.
It's going to be a drastic drop-off because you're going to see like, damn, this team's...
Well, Ole Miss was a great example of that because they depend on the portal like Colorado's trying to depend on the portal. But they're not losing guys. Mm-hmm. Like, it's working out for them. You know what I mean? Like, they're building a complete roster through the portal. And Lane, like, personality-wise, like, he's figured out how to do it. And I think he likes it more because it's a little bit less, like, stressful than high school recruiting year-round. And obviously, Ole Miss is willing to pay. Like, they're not getting the 5 stars out of high school. They're probably never going to, not on a consistent
Unless
basis.
They're from the state of Mississippi.
Right. But... that's an example of what Dion's trying to do, but doing it and really establishing a culture with it. One other team I did want to bring up college-wise, if fucking Ohio State doesn't